welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark.
It's amazing how it has all happened so fast.
I know.
Yesterday and it's coming. So, but yeah, before you can just tell our listeners about yourself, then you get to understand the person you are,
Sure.
and you can drive the conversation there.
Okay. I want to lower this a bit.
Okay, just
Okay. Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you, Mark, Kate. Everyone, Moses, for inviting me. This is very nice and spontaneous. I'm called Yashvini, but you can call me V. I grew up here. I was born in the UK, but I grew up here. Stayed till P7, did my PLE. Then I went to India for my GCSEs.
Yeah.
So I did my 10th board exams there, and then I did the IB in India, Ahmedabad. And then I went to the UK. So I studied civil engineering there. Now, technically, I'm a civil engineer, but I work as a consultant in mostly projects that have gone wrong, like construction projects that have gone wrong. So on the dispute side of construction.
I think you'd have a lot of business in Uganda because a lot of projects here go around there. The buildings are always falling.
Oh yes, of course, I can see them. But yeah, our projects are mostly in the Middle East. My team is in the Middle East, in Dubai, Qatar, like the big buildings there. You know, it looks shiny, but there's a lot of sweat there. So we work in the consultant. You have Guru? Did I see Guru there?
Yeah.
I read that book.
Yeah,
That's so weird.
I've read it.
That's crazy. How do you have that book? He signed it for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I met him. He was opening like a cement factory, and I walked up to him. He signed it for me, and I read it, and it's amazing.
Nice.
Wow. Okay, diversion, but that's how podcasts go.
Yeah. Okay, that's how did you switch? How did you find switching from PLE to you went to India straight up? How was that like for you?
Well, in many ways, my parents thought like the Ugandan UNED board was like the best thing because they'd done the same.
Yeah.
So they grew up in Buganda Road, and they used to tell me stories of going bare feet, struggling with the teachers caning them. And they're like, that struggle made them who they are, and they felt like the children should, see what strictness is. So technically their definition of that was sending us to Kampala parents. Then it was like a very strict school. Like was then. I think the principal is still there, perhaps, I don't know. But caning was a routine, got caned a few times. I think the biggest, when you said change, I think it was more on the discipline kind of side, the way they treat you. Like there, it was more like, okay, maybe we were old then, but there was no like physical kind of terror that was associated with my childhood education. But as far as like the content goes, it was normal.
But you were able to match up with all the other students that were from.
Yeah. In many ways, some of the stuff that we learned in P7, P6 was done. Like they were just getting to know that. So in many ways, like we were kind of ahead.
Why did you choose to become an engineer?
Because it sounded cool. Okay. And
that's the most perfect answer anyone has ever given me when I asked them why they chose such certain professions.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It just, like, engineering sounded cool, and it was the only engineer, like, I picked civil engineering because it was the only engineering that had the word environmental in it, so it was civil and environmental engineering. So I picked civil because it had environmental, because I was passionate about climate change. From the start, somehow, as always, like, oh my God, trees are being cut down, like, even as a child, like, it's very ingrained in me, even from my mom. So that's why I picked civil engineering.
Are you Ugandan?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Extremely good. Do you hope to come and fix work here?
Yeah. But the one thing that I'm personally dealing with is, like, balancing your, like, an empty pot can't give anything. And I feel empty right now. It's like I have little in me, like I want to first develop myself, like who I am, like
Also,
career-wise. Like
go get an MBA, do all that stuff.
No, I wouldn't want to pile up on like, fancy prefixes behind my name.
Yeah.
I did actually. I wanted to apply for a PhD, didn't get it. But I think at this point, I just want like to figure out who I am, like just take life easy for now, and then how to solve or how to be something to someone who can.
Because that is something I think I've struggled with for some time. I don't even know if I've found. I believe I'm at like a content place where I'm content with myself, but I don't believe I've figured out myself. I don't even hope that when people really say they are figuring out themselves,
Yep.
I fail to understand in what context they mean. Like,
Yeah, perfect. Well, as a child, I think my values were very fixed. And my sister can attest to that. She's here, and she'll be like, "Yeah, you're this happy person. You knew what you wanted. You're decisive." It largely came from like a spiritual belief in God, and like the whole metaphysical aspects of Hinduism, right? I subscribed to that, but it kind of those models of belief kind of didn't. I'm not saying they broke down or shattered, but something similar. Okay, I started questioning everything, and by questioning I mean all the things that I've been taught in life, like they've come as instructions, like this is what you do, this is the time you get up, like even in school we had Christianity, and it's like, okay, how do you be? Obviously the fundamental principles of most religions are the same, but it dawned on me that actually no one knows what they're really talking about. And that was very sad, because as a person who loved idolizing stuff, like idolizing people or idolizing like things or concepts, I'll be like, God, that's so cool, I have that tendency. But I think as a person who likes to defer judgment, when you understand that actually you have to take agency over your actions, your decisions, the fundamentals of your models of how you think about the world, it was hard for me, right? And that's how it's a process of like figuring out who you are, your values, what do you believe in, what is right, what's wrong.
What do you believe in?
How do you answer that?
I listen to my thoughts. And to this day I do not fully believe in. I know that there's like a superpower,
Right.
but then the whole Bible concept, because I'm Christian, I'm more Christian as well Catholic, but I don't really subscribe to the norms of how the whole religion thing is enough for me. So, but I listen to my thoughts a bit, my time, and meditate, and I'm just there. I do not know what I believe in, but then different people do. You talked about the principles of Hinduism.
Yeah.
You just tell me more like how you get through your days.
Okay.
Yeah.
How I get through my days? Well, I try to like get up, try to meditate. So for a long time I didn't have that kind of thing. Okay.
How do you meditate?
Just sit wherever I am. So normally, like I'm not that, I'm trying to build a habit. So I have a habit tracker. It's like put in my days of trying to build a habit of meditating. But any day, like before I sleep, I have like this mental rota going on. Have I XXX? So I have a few things that I have to get through before I call it a day, or give myself permission to sleep, which is like meditate, like do some yoga. I call it the Surya Namaskar, like 2 of them. 3 is blog, like write down my thoughts somewhere. 4 is code, like, or at least mentally keep the code in your head, try to do that. So those are my core things, try to do, practice every day, build it in me to do it. As far as like what I believe in that spiritual kind of concept is concerned, I think for a long time I really admired atheism. I felt it was a more sure way to live, because I think they were courage enough to say we don't know what we're talking about. No one really knows that.
Are not the people who say they do not know. Atheists are the people who refuse.
Who refuse?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'm talking about more the agnostics.
Because
The agnostics.
among the people that let's say I do not know, because really I do not know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure that out.
Okay, in many ways, like the agnostics appeal,
Yeah.
because, like, okay, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, right? So, like, Joe Rogan, are you familiar with his podcast and everything?
Big inspiration to this podcast.
Okay, it's the Joe. He's my man. Like, I was like, God, yeah. So I listen to a lot of his podcasts, and he's got some interesting people talk about stuff like
Who are your best guests? Joe Rogan.
Sadhguru. Sadhguru.
Maybe Elon Musk and Kanye, but Sadhguru. Out there, I've listened to. He's been on the show twice, I think.
I listened to his most recent one. I didn't know about the first one.
Yeah, he was in the first one, most recent.
I think he's like one person who doesn't talk like hocus pocus, right? And he's like, we all come from soil. We better take care of it. And they're like, yeah, okay, I agree with that, But Sadhguru, and also there's someone called Paul Stamets. He's a American mycologist.
Yeah.
Or he studies like mushrooms and fungi in like the old growth forests of California in the US. And he has like this whole concept of consciousness linked to mushrooms and psychedelics. And that world opened up to me. And I was like, oh shit, like I have to explore more into like delve into what is the self. How did all these people come up with religion? What is, so there's something called the Vedantic texts. Now, it's recently come into like the mainstream knowledge, okay? But the Vedantic texts are basically the end of the Vedas, the summary of the ancient Hindu scripts, okay? Of understanding the self. Yeah. And there's no mention of God or anything. It's just about start with yourself.
This other book, it's by Ugandan. It's called, it's by a friend of mine. It's called Kenneth Mahindi. It's called Self and Meditation. Please, probably share with you a link and you read it online. But he also talks, he hints, he gets so much from all these other books.
Yeah.
And he tries to, because the book is about, he wants as many people to meditate as possible because he believes that's a more clearer path. You'll see better results in life if you start listening to your souls. Because the beauty about what I understand about meditation is just to listen to your thoughts and to know where you lie as an individual, to make sure you're not lying to yourself as a person.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was just a recommendation.
No, I love it. I can already see some of the quotes from like some of the things I've read.
Sure.
I thought I saw something of the Vedanta here, of the Akasha. Akasha means sky. Yeah, every soul of consciousness descends from the source being called Akash. And then, my grandma used to talk about the Kundalini. He's talking about the Kundalini. Okay, I'll read this. Okay. Yeah. Every soul or consciousness descends from the source being Akash, which will be discussed later, as a magnetized astral body tethered to the physical body by a life-facilitating force known as Kundalini. Now, my grandma used to talk about the Kundalini a lot. This is my mom's side. She would say like her Kundalini, like you could feel it on the bottom, and when it rises.
Wait, what's a Kundalini?
Okay.
Yeah.
The way she described it, I'm not okay. Here it's kind of different from what she told me as a child, but she used to tell me stories about Kundalini being like a serpent seated at the bottom of your body, a force or a life form. Okay, that's the originator, like facilitator of all the things going on in your body. And it sits on the bottom chakra, okay? And there are 5 chakras through your head. This is the highest. Then you have one, like, at every stage. Then your stomach is 1 chakra. Chakra is just like energy center where things happen, When you don't eat food, you can feel the burning energy, like, destroying your stomach because I need food. That's energy force. Like that, the different chakras, right? And the Kundalini sits on the bottom, and the goal of life is to make your chakras rise from the most primal, basic form of eating, sleeping, mating, to like more purer forms of consciousness, which is like discovering God or like knowing concept of Brahman. Brahman is the all-pervading force of the universe. So she used to tell me stories like, as fasting, there's a 9-day fast called Navratri. She was fasting that time, and her chakra opened up, and she could see it singing and trying to rise, and it was heating up her body. And I was like, what? It sounded crazy, but yeah.
figured out your purpose in life? Do you know your purpose in life?
I have an inkling of it.
Did you say?
I have an inkling, I kind of know what it is.
What it is?
Climate change. I'm doing something there.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Now that you bring it up, let's just go into it. Is climate change real? It's a very interesting question. I like to ask it from all activists because I bring it from the context of from our country.
Yeah.
How would you explain it to me like I'm in P3 for me to understand?
No, it helps if I know where you're coming from. So why do you ask the question? What are your previous impressions of climate change? What have you been hearing?
You see, like how the pandemic came about, and we had mixed feelings about the pandemic. Much as there is so much information about the pandemic and all that, but the fact that I could survive, still surviving without vaccine. So, and I'm not saying people didn't die; they did die, but it just looks very fictional in my mind. So it's the same with climate change. It's hard for me to believe that I'm affected or I'll be affected in any time soon because I've existed all this time.
Yeah.
And it's just coming up now that, hey, now I should watch what my car is fuming, how much carbon dioxide I'm putting out.
Yeah.
It's all just vague to like
sure.
me and very many other people that think like me.
But what do you feel like inside of you? Do you feel climate has changed around you or not? Like,
and now it's hard to notice. There's no like pattern on the weather, which is at least we knew we had seasons, but now it would just decide to rain randomly. We knew that some months you were sure of the rain. You could, if you were a farmer, you could time and know that in this season I can do plan my harvest and stuff. I can calculate the weather.
Yeah.
But now it's so random. Maybe that. But also, when you look at Uganda and the politics around it, we have people cutting down forests, people doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like it's just business at the end of the day. It's just big farmer wanting to run away with the killing to me. So yeah, I just want to understand and to learn from you.
As far as climate change is concerned, I won't comment more on that, okay? Because I don't feel like I have the qualifications, but I do have one movie I'll talk about later that I will say.
Okay.
But I'll...
There's something to say about that.
Okay. Yeah, please, yes. The podcast you can... Even,
oh yeah, did they
you can either sit in or say from there. If you don't want to know, you can say from there. Yeah.
It's fine, carry on.
Okay. About climate change, what I would say is, I'm not even talking about, let's not even talk about climate change right now. Let's talk about the Uganda I grew up when I was 5 or 4. Okay. Kampala was small. Okay. I have memories of coming out of to go to the airport in Entebbe, and the whole area just being green with trees and forests. And when we used to go to Jinja, Mabira, you'd be like, oh my god, this place is so scary. I used to be scared. I was like, oh, you're not gonna die, Daddy, are we? Because it's massive forests, and you just I had the feeling that it was like a Uganda that I'll never see again, where there was at least more than now. There was much more greenery and there's much more rain. I remember there being hailstones, and I used to go dance outside, and my mom used to get annoyed. I have these memories of Uganda, and suddenly things have kind of changed. Suddenly there's more roads being filled with cars. You're seeing the swamps, the wetlands. We used to learn about wetland degradation near. Yeah, and it's crazy. There used to be wetlands everywhere, nowhere to be found. There was a story that one of my uncles told me. It's called JB. So he said that there's a myth that when the British were building the East African railways, they brought in Indian priests to come to Uganda to stop the rain, to do some hocus pocus to stop the rain, because there's just so much rain you couldn't build.
That happen?
I don't know, okay?
Because it happens when people have functions here, outdoor functions, to get people to stop the rain. So, and they really actually get people to
Like witchcraft?
like any functions, if someone has, like, let's say, a blankets and wines happening anywhere, anything that is happening outdoor, people just always get people that can stop the rain, and actually they do stop the rain.
Really?
So I don't understand how that happens, but how do the aliens do it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just heard
Just
it from
me, yeah.
him, you know, that during that, like, Kampala was so rainy, it was so hard to build anything. And my mom says, oh, Kampala's changed. Kampala's changed. It's not the same anymore. It's not the same. Too many trees are being cut down. And I'm a scientific person, right? Like, you can't go with one or two, like, anecdotal evidence and be like, oh my God, climate change is happening. Okay, no. Let's look at the data. Let's look at satellite imagery. So I've read a lot of the papers on, say, the East African region. I can't say a lot, okay, but 2 or 3 papers around the issue of food security, for instance. So there's a massive, massive threat of food shortages in the coming years in the East African region.
But that also is partly is because of the war, the Ukraine-Russia war. You know,
I'm talking about food shortage grown locally, not imported like the wheat from Ukraine, Russia. Like locusts have destroyed like the crop in Kenya. Now the world, I've heard from somewhere, has only 9 months of reserve food left. If in 9 months, like weather patterns radically change, there's no food in the coming 9 months, right? So if this is April 2022, 9 months from now, it'll be 4, 5, 8 plus 1. Feb 2023, there'll be no food left if something happens between now and then to destroy like the food security of the country. And it's shocking because we realize that with every like increase in food prices, there's the likelihood of war increases. And this is all tabulated in like data from 50 years back, right? Of how food shortage is closely linked to war, insecurity, religious wars, fanatism, like fundamentalism, like you've seen Nigeria, Accra, the north and south, like Christian and Muslim divide that's happening. All these things intensify once you've got food shortages. And it's freaking me out because I'm like...
How do I start to notice the direct impact of my actions as regards climate change? Like how do I really tell that, you know what, the gas my car is putting out is really an effect to climate change? Like how do I start to live that cautious?
I don't know the answer.
A normal Ugandan. Like,
yeah.
How do you think would feel like, you know what, now we have to, our actions directly.
They matter.
Yeah.
So, when I was young, when my mom used to get like tissue paper to like wipe stuff, all I could think of was the trees that are dying. Yeah, because I was like, Mom, don't use tissue paper, you know? Or Mom, like, you know.
How were you able to?
Exactly, it became hard for me to live. So I've like grown out of that kind of thinking to more thinking of systematic patterns. And I think like, obviously I do love the fact that everyone's getting more conscious on the individual level. You know, you can get your food, put it in a thing, like, I don't know, make fertilize out of that, fertilizer plants, right? It's no longer the same though. Like when you think of the systematic patterns that need to be changed, we need to find an alternative energy source. We need to find new ways to grow plants.
What could be the alternative energy source?
Fission and fusion. Like I know, I think nuclear power is like the best bet we have so far with existing current technology. Like till we get...
That's just put us down in poverty, and to be expensive to survive. Because already, I mean, it's crazy surviving in like a third world country. So any other alternative source of energy will...
Solar?
Isn't it?
Solar, wind?
Yeah, so solar would be cool.
But I think Uganda, we're fine. Like, we've got dams. I don't think we're, like, polluting the atmosphere right now.
How do we become part of the solution?
I think just...
How do you think you're part of the solution?
I think I'm not yet part of the solution. But I want to be. And therefore, like, the way I see it, we have to address... There's something called Project Drawdown. Project Drawdown has listed the 10 things that the world must focus right now to avert like a massive climate disaster in like the next 50 years. In my lifetime, I'm going to see probably like lots of wars because of climate change. I think you said Sadhguru was saying the same thing about like the soil. Yeah. We're losing topsoil, you know. These things are real. Like the fish stocks are declining, you know. There's a movie called Cowspiracy.
You know the thing with me now, like me, and I'm not being like so much out of the country or export so much. So when I'm listening to someone like Sadhguru, I put it in context like that doesn't apply to me. Yeah, like all this information is cool. I love to know it, but now I'm safe. I'm in Uganda. I'm safe. It's just an imbued feeling in me. Like,
I see.
Yeah.
But even as a Ugandan, like I feel like there's so much I can do, right? Okay. The best way I can contribute to climate change is to probably educate women and empower women, because if as a country like we have the current growth rate of our population, the population projections for like the next say 40 years are going to be like 80 million people in this country. Do we have enough resources for everyone? That's a huge question, and
that actually brings us to the point where blockchain. You say blockchain could be the solution, but then when you look at how blockchain is designed, it can't really work here. The systems here cannot allow transparency. They cannot allow. It's more of inclined wealth. There's just wealth on one side, and it's important that it stays like that for the people that have the power. So it's not going to work. It's not like governments won't implement it.
So the two things here, we're talking about blockchain and we're talking about climate change and women empowerment, and they're not that
interchangeable.
They're a bit separate in what they try to address, because I feel blockchain is more like the tech solution.
How does blockchain then solve
climate change? There's actually amazing work going on in climate change AI, and there are like a few other companies that are right now invested in, like on Twitter. Like I can pull up my Twitter and see. But the way they do it is, you know, the way the current capitalism works. It's like there's a few people in power who control a massive amount of resources, or like will buy say X amount of property, land, and collect rent and that, right? But the good part with blockchain is that there's a like say everyone wanted to save Mambira forest.
Yeah.
You know, a group of Ugandans love that country. We want to do something for it. How do we do it? The idea is to use satellite imagery data of greenery, of like, you know, green corridors in the world. Put that on a blockchain, right? So no one can dispute, okay, you've not cut a tree, you have cut a tree, okay. Like suddenly you've got that in the cloud. You can create a marketplace for carbon credits. So I'm sure you must have heard of stuff like the IPCC talking about carbon credits, right? And paying people to say grow trees, and because you're getting carbon credits. So the idea is to create like a climate marketplace where with every green action or like nature reserve you preserve to like collect carbon, you earn money because of the carbon credits.
Like recycling, right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of that happening here. I see a lot of people. I don't know how they make the money though, but I see a lot of people because I produce some other show. It's for kids who are in the ghetto. So
okay.
They have this other host who keeps asking them about what they do. So this young man mentioned that he recycles, and he's very passionate about saving the environment, but he's so stuck in such a place where he's now just trading off the plastic, and there's probably someone else who's earning bigger coins from it than them. But yeah, that's something also.
Wait, so that's so interesting. So you interview like people from
all sorts of life.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's ordinary people. But
so who inspires you?
Who's that?
Whose work has inspired you so far?
Mostly on the podcast or generally? General work.
Yeah. General. Even in the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, with the podcasting, but a lot of stuff. I also listen to Lexi Friedman.
Same.
Yeah, so I like the fact that he had to stop coding and now do podcasting full time. and he's devoted to like free speech, to like just get people on and get our ideas. Yeah, that is like my biggest inspiration with as regards podcasting. The rest of the stuff, I'm just in like a plane, just like giving it a shot. I am more of an optimistic person,
Yeah.
so this brings my friends together,
Yeah.
and also it's more like freedom to me. But then
Yeah.
the price for freedom is very expensive because now I have to look out for the next person to trade my time off for. Like I have to wait for a phone call, then someone tells me they will need to use my equipment and stuff like that, then I'll trade my time. So, because that's what I do, and like openly, I do consultancy for other people and stuff.
Yeah.
I get money from that. But this is like that. It's more of just to have my own freedom.
Yeah.
And I can just have conversations with people, learn from them, and it keeps me going because then there's like kind of research I put into it before I come on the podcast. I have to read about some stuff, like how I have a conversation. And that is like the energy I get from it. The inspiration is just from it, from the podcast, from doing this. That's the inspiration.
Okay. Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so stuck from you're still explaining.
Yes. Remind me what. As explaining climate change, then we talked about blockchain. Then we talked about
How blockchain is solving climate change.
yeah.
And
So
just-
okay, one thing that has massively like made a change in my life is Twitter.
Okay.
Like just being active on Twitter and Twitter Spaces. So I'd have like random conversations and like ask questions about like climate change on like Twitter Spaces and connect with like these random cool people who would like give me free advice just because they like my ideas and like getting my ideas like so I started like blogging like a lot now. So it's like every day I'll try to like put something out there,
Yeah,
something
you should
out
have sent
there.
me a blog. I should have read it.
Yeah.
You
And
definitely have sent it.
yeah, I'll send it. And so I'm trying to like create a whole system of information permutation combination, like or information permutation. Permutation is like arrangements of certain things, right? Like in mathematics, like we had this whole combinatorics chapter, and I loved it. Like, but the idea was like you can combine certain pieces of things in a unique number of ways, right? Now, I've kind of personally dealing. You talked about mental health, right? No, I've been dealing with stuff like depression, and lack of self-esteem. So okay, and all like issues with like confidence. Okay, and all these issues combined to form a feeling that I have nothing to contribute to the world. Like climate change is such a huge problem. I will never develop the competence to move a dime. Like, and it's very easy to get hopeless because of climate change. And there's a special term given to it. They call it Solastalgia. So it's the sadness when you understand climate change. Because some of the papers, like there's this whole school of deep adaptation reading group. Like they just have abysmal predictions of climate change and how like the Arctic is melting right now and how the weather patterns in most of the world's bread baskets are a threat. And immediate impact is not even coastal cities are going to drown. Like Uganda was safe, right? But talk about Mumbai, Delhi, talk about New York, talk about London, gonna go down in the water very, very soon. And it's not
When you said very, very soon, you
50.
reminded me like the people at 2012. There were rumors that the world was coming to an end.
Yeah. Okay, but that's like preachers, like Bible believers, not scientists, right? In fact, like, do you like watching BBC films or shows?
I like, yes, Prime Minister used to watch that show. I don't know if you watched it. It's like, yeah, but I like BBC. I like
Okay.
English stuff.
Try watching something called The Trick.
Okay.
So it follows a professor in the University of East Anglia.
Yeah, let me just write that down.
Yeah. You can even Google it. It's like a very intensive, like 30-second trailer. And the trick like shocked me. Like I kind of knew everything, right? But I just watched it recently. I'm like, oh my god, the massive disinformation campaigns on the parts of like these oil companies has been going so long, and the basic idea is that they tried to hack this professor's
This,
data.
right?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
they tried to hack this professor's data centers, hacked into it, and got like a bunch of emails. And they kind of focused on one email, which is like, this was the trick. You tried to hide the decline of temperatures. And then, it's easy for people to be like, okay, we don't believe in climate change. It became like, and this was just before the IPCC convention was to take place in, I think, Copenhagen. So, yeah, like this story was like super real because it's talking about politics, money, and it's talking about also the truth. The truth is there, right? Anyone can get the data. You right now, Mark, can open up internet, Google, get the data. I think it's for free now.
I don't understand the right data to use from the internet. How do you, in a world of a lot of information overload where there's so much, anyone can just publish, anyone can just put the stuff out there, their research, statistics are never accurate, stuff like that. So how do you differentiate between good and bad data?
How do you, for now? How do you? I'll turn my question to you.
My instinct.
Okay.
Like I read and Google. Yeah, I don't have like a formula to. I don't really trust everything I see on the internet, but of course things make sense when I read things. I try to. It's like spirituality. That's why I'm not there because the jumbles don't make sense. But I know that it's important to be a very good human being. Yeah, that's to me my goal. So it's the same with the information. There's so much of it that I also feel like if you consume so much of it, you become too intelligent and it's useless.
Okay.
Not to be too intelligent, but to have all this information, like you failed to know. That is why
you failed to implement.
That's the thing I've also observed from people who are atheists. They have so much information that it's just all over the place. They do not know. They don't have like a direction.
Okay.
So that's the thing with data as well. In most cases, there's no like direction because it goes back like when you look at the social platforms. There's this funny story I know that all the people in my circles that have stood for elective politics and have been hyped online have failed dramatically, like drastically failed. It's been too big because and the hopes people get when they see them campaign like online and the data and the metrics, all that stuff piling up, it's all fake. So I don't know how to really like.
Oh, you mean like political campaigns?
I'm not actually talking about political like government.
Okay.
Let it be school politics and what. As long as so the information that is gotten, big data, small data from the internet is never accurate enough to give you. Well, this is from my circles. To give you like a direct impression.
How many views on YouTube do you have?
Views? 30,000.
Do you trust them?
No, because 3 people, you see, when we're watching YouTube right now, and I'm watching it the most, YouTube will report 1 person.
Right.
But will be 2 people watching.
Okay.
Yes.
How accurate do you think the 30,000 figure is? Do you trust YouTube?
I have no option but to just use it. It's,
okay.
Yeah. I don't trust it because you can actually pay a bots and people have numbers that are not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you trust? Do you trust the news, like WBS?
Oh no, WBS was closed, but no.
Oh, it's closed. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I've not watched TV.
In TV?
It's you know why I can't trust the news.
How do you trust Lex Friedman? Why?
He has conversations with people, and he's not coming off as an expert.
Okay.
Yeah. Something has to make sense to him, but they're like always 2 sides to the story all the time. So it's up to me to. It's not a question of trust. It's what he says makes sense to me, so I just go with that.
Okay.
It's how I treat my information as well. Yeah.
Do you think has everything that has made sense to you, Like, okay, have there been times in your life where something hasn't made sense to you but has been right?
Most of the time.
So, are you suggesting that there are limitations on what makes sense to you?
How do you mean?
I asked you, like, you follow things by instinct, and if it feels right, you make your own judgment, right? But have you had instances in your life where something hasn't made sense to you but it's still right? Like, for example, so we had IBHL, right? God, it never made sense to me. It was so hard, math. Math was, there's some equations that, like, what are they talking about? Mostly like differential equations with there's something called partial differential equations of vector spaces. This small form of math. Okay, never made sense to me. But I knew that just because it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Because one, I know that these are the equations behind most computer graphics. These are the equations behind most television screens and most transmission, like the mics we're talking on. The voices are being translated as like sine waves. They're going electric impulses. There's Fourier transform happening. Now, I couldn't understand the math that goes on, okay? But it doesn't mean it's not working, right? So how do you address that? How do you address those areas that it's basically confirmation bias, right?
Facts.
You will, yeah.
As facts, it's like science. There's some truth to it. That is why it's easier to, if all some things are facts, they can be proven, like Newton's laws and stuff, like math. Yeah. So that what is factual is factual. I don't go against it, but for information like data to just access, how do you know the right and wrong data to use
I think
to inform your research?
Okay, so I think there's something, you might have heard this, called the Lindsay principle,
Yeah.
right? And the idea is that no institution or no belief or like idea would last long if it lacked merit. It would have died. It could have been something like natural selection. It would have gone away. I kind of use the same logic. Like right now, some things that I trust find they're very Eurocentric right now. Like even now, we have a very Eurocentric worldview. I don't say that, I'm not saying there are no limitations to that. Obviously there are, right? Like, not only one place has ideas, right? But the good thing about the internet is getting democratized, which I'll come to. But what I'm saying right now is peer-reviewed journals. Look for peer-reviewed journals that have merit.
Yeah.
Okay, that have like a history of controversy, or they allow dissent. Like Nature is a good magazine. Like I always go by Nature. Like it's the oldest journal we have. If it was all full of bollocks, it wouldn't have gone on till this much. Like people would be like, okay, it's not working. We have to get an alternative. Now, it doesn't say that blindly trust Nature all the time. It says you can trust Nature more than you can trust others. Mr. X from this and this place. I think the scientific method is our best bet right now. That's why, like, every time I wake up, I'm just so happy. I'm so grateful to be part of however much there's climate change around, and this and
Do you
this.
think the richest people are supposed to first team up together and solve climate change because they have all the resources?
Well, they're
Or do
trying.
you think it's they're trying, or it's always to their benefit, like the pandemic? Those rumors, like Bill Gates has a book on climate change. It's still a book out of trees,
Yeah, but what do you want him to make it out of?
I don't know, but that's
Cloth?
the whole thing. It's still peppers. You're still cutting down trees to make a shilling of the book. Because the book is free.
Right. As much as, like, I don't think all millionaires are have the best interests at heart. I do know that Bill Gates has enough money not to want like one more shilling out of being more famous. Like, that's probably not on his agenda. He should be chilling on a private beach in Zanzibar somewhere.
Well, he's not though. He's still owning big pharma.
Yeah, but all I'm trying to say is that they are billionaires who do that. Most billionaires don't bother to like write books on climate change. They're very content with living with 25-year-old models in some remote island where you will never hear them. Like Harvey Weinstein. Was that Weinstein? Who was that dude?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as like I know he's not perfect, but I also know that he's not that dumb to be like, let me spend the last 5 years of my life writing books about climate
One of
change.
the things he was suggesting in his book were he actually stopped taking flights. He just stopped the family from taking flights because he understands that his contribution is so minimal, but he has to start somewhere. Yeah. Then how does that transfer to you? Like for you to understand that, you know what, my contribution, like you said you were stopping your mom when you're growing up, from you already were cautious enough on just toilet paper. But it has to be like collective effort. Yeah, if you're cautious and that all the three guys in this room are not, it's more like it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, like there's lots of things we can talk about here. What you mentioned is something called like you've heard of game theory, right? Yeah. But there's like this whole branch of mathematical game theory that tries to go into the game theories of climate change, where you've got actors in the planet, but no actor has incentive to do it if the rest don't, right? It only works if everyone else does. And obviously, like, I haven't read up more, so I don't know more. I should probably like see, okay, what are the conclusions? But all I can say that the network effects of one individual are vastly underrated in our world, especially with podcasting. Like you're reaching how many? 30,000 people, or have reached them. Like the actions that you can spur even with one flight not being taken. But that, like, it's like butterfly effects all the way through, you know? Like it's very hard to predict our actions, but the best bet is to just work on yourself. But also compassionately. Be compassionate to yourself.
What are your values? What are your values as a human being?
What do you mean by values?
What I mean by that is what principles have you practiced enough that you believe the ideal world should be like that? Like we should exist in this world, or like this, like this is what it takes for all of us to be happy people. Are you a happy person?
Sometimes.
What do you understand by happiness? How do you define your happiness?
Content. Peace. One thing that I will say is that.
Just push that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, one thing I will say is some of the most happy people in my life I've seen, or like content, they have a natural smile to their face. They'll just have like this little smile that's always on their face that never goes away. Like fine, it's sad, yeah, but they'll always be like. And when I inquired into like, okay, how can you be smiling when there's so much suffering in the world? They're like, you know, if I don't like, by smiling, I like, by being conscious of my body, my feelings, my thoughts, my happiness, I will naturally be a joyful person. Like most Vedantic philosophy is that you are a eternally blissful soul. Like bliss is it's intrinsically part of you. Then any happiness or sadness or worry or like tension or stress or depression is not your eternal self. And the ways that you can harvest that bliss within yourself is by breathing. Like they call it Pranayama, like consciousness, like breathing. Like the moment you breathe in, you're releasing. I think, well, this is going to get in a very weird space, but I will talk about psychedelics. Okay, so like they help you, or they helped realize that actually, like once you just understand your body, like you can understand the world because your body is like your micro universe. Like it's a universe on a
When you
micro
say-
scale.
Once you just understand your body, does it mean like from an educated guess, you will know what's up with the nerves and everything, all that stuff, what
Yeah.
the heart is pumping, at what pace, at what rate? Is that what you mean by understanding my body?
By understanding, I'll change that word to by being conscious of your body. Like just being conscious of your body, like what's happening.
What's happening?
Your body is always giving you signals, right? Like I find myself when I'm thinking also, like thoughts form in my head, but then they translate to my fingers and they want to,
You notice all those patterns.
yeah, like now I've become more conscious of stuff like dance and the self-expression. Like just centering yourself. First breathe. I already feel more present by just taking one more breath, like I have a tendency to overly worry about things, but once I just breathe, take deep breaths, you're coming back to the present. You might have heard of this book called Be Here Now.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Not ready, but I've heard it.
You've heard
I
of
have a
it?
friend who has it. He
Okay.
keeps talking about it.
Yeah, so Be Here Now, like all that San Francisco cult of psychedelics and like experimenting with Eastern spirituality. Be here now. It's, I don't know, the moment you breathe, you're, I don't know how it works biologically, right? But I know experientially, it makes me more in tune with my surroundings. I can notice more colors. I can notice sounds, I can hear food being cooked, So I think your body is always giving you signals. And I found that there's always this knot in my stomach when there's something bad gonna happen, or I'm not paying attention to things that I'm supposed to do but I'm not doing because I want to watch one more episode of Netflix, Crown, let's watch The Crown. I can feel like my body is telling me something, but we've become so unconscious of our own body. Like I've become so unconscious that I don't even realize that I'm not okay. Like my body is telling me something, I'm not listening. And I think that's where the limitation of language also plays into the factor. Like we always think in thoughts all the time. Meditation clears up thoughts. So your language centers are
I
gone.
haven't felt to properly meditate, and I think it's a thing with me from my childhood. Once I do something good for the first time, then I think that I can always do it good, so I won't practice, and I just lose it. It happened in class, I used to top class, and I realized I can just stop class without reading, so I just keep up. So I've seen that reflect a lot. So whenever I like talking to Kenneth about meditation. So whenever I'm having conversations on how to properly meditate, like to just breathe in and then notice my thoughts, I fail. It's like the time I saw a therapist at some point. I felt like therapy was very, very useless to me, in my opinion.
So you don't have to, but how was that? Like, what led to that
I
therapy?
went through a breakup.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I lost it because this was my life.
Yeah.
So therapist was telling me all these things and how to move on, but they were very cliche to me. Like they were just like any other stuff you listen from a motivational speaker.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just that. It's just noise.
That's not therapy. Or not meant to. That's not meant to.
Professional therapy, but
Okay.
it's exactly what I went
Okay.
through. They're just telling me context or probably giving me a different perspective of things,
Yeah.
and just from a background of the information I've laid out to them.
Yeah.
But they were just giving me an alternative perspective, and to me that wasn't it. And it's the same thing with
Meditation.
I just get lost into it. I feel like it's also some cool people stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can just exist because I believe I'm a happy person. Like genuinely, I like to let go of my thoughts and just exist. present moment.
I don't think meditation is the only way. Like whatever gets you in flow is a type of meditation as well. Like you said, podcasting. It's kind of meditating because you're not really thinking about, oh, what's for food at night. You're like, oh shit,
I have to talk
you're present. I think there's a book called was it called Flow or was it called something? No, it was called Deep Work by Carl Newport. And this book taught me about what it means to be in flow. So actually, I'll take you to my period of depression and coming through all of that.
I was just going to come to that, by the way. I was going to ask you about it. Let me just write that book down.
Deep Work by Cal Newport. Also write this book called Positive Learned Helplessness by Martin Seligman.
This is Deep Work.
By Cal Newport. I'll sit also in a meditative state.
And?
Learned Helplessness. No, sorry. Authentic Happiness by Martin Seligman. So these books got me through a lot of my top-down understanding of what's happening in depression. So my also what I have, like, depression's like my kind of speciality, because I remember I have a tendency to like overly like read stuff, right? And I remember 2-3 years all I was doing was reading papers on depression and looking at like latest research on that, and came across psychedelics, and then came across like positive psychology, Martin Seligman, came across like the neuroscience of depression, electrostimulation to like for the extremely depressed people. Then also, but I think Martin,
When you say you suffered, this was diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Make me understand depression. Because I actually have, my friends keep saying, I feel I've been depressed a lot before. But the beauty about me is the time I feel as depressed, I was too broke to be taken to a hospital to get actual diagnosis, but then I dealt with it. Yeah, because that was the time I was building the heart. That's
Right.
the time I feel like I was depressed. So I don't actually know if it was cured or
Okay.
dealt with it, or I just learned to cope and move
Right.
along with it.
What do you feel?
Like I told you, I'm a happy guy.
So you're fine. You're fine.
That's the thing. It's I've been happy all my life,
Okay.
regardless of circumstance, and I've been on the street. Even when I was on the street, I was happy.
You've been on the
On
street?
the street, like
Wait,
I'm
what?
just a street person.
How?
But before the
Don't tell me your life story first. I don't know anything about you.
Yeah, so that happened. Grew up uptown. My dad and my parents can afford stuff. So it's school like that. I feel like it's jumbled. I get into a relationship, get a very good high-paying job,
Yeah.
try to sustain it, then it crashes. We split with my baby mama, get really depressed, disconnect from a lot of stuff, disconnect from like the jobs, people who are employing me, because nothing made sense anymore.
Okay.
Nothing was more fulfilling, yeah? Then I end up on the street, of course. You fuck up a lot of people, so you don't have who to call or who to help you. So you're only left with options. And the
Whoa.
way Uganda is set up is it's so easy to be cool while on the streets. People just don't notice because people are very loving, yeah, and welcoming as Ugandans in general. So it's just easy to blend in with certain communities, just like that. So
Wait, so you didn't have a house?
I didn't have a house. Not that I had my parents' house. My parents stayed somewhere in Tinder there.
Okay.
But I couldn't go back to my parents' house because I hated going back to my parents' house. I've dreaded being parents' house. Parents are parents. Anyway, my dad is a good guy. He'll probably listen to this after. But he's a good guy. He knows that. He knows I treat him as a good guy. But still, the parents.
Okay.
Yeah? So I got to that level where it was just wrong. And yeah, I ended up on the street. I was on the street for like a year straight. Months in. Street, like sleeping on the street, but really getting my education, still accessing the internet stuff, still being on Twitter. So at that time, I believe I was depressed because I was making really,
Okay.
really stupid judgment
Okay.
in my life. But I didn't go to hospital.
Okay.
I didn't see therapy for that. I
Okay.
just moved along. I just recollected myself like I was like, enough is enough. This is not like the life I really want. This is just too much. Then of course, my past started connecting the dots. I realized I was a smart child. I realized I could get things done. So yeah, I feed into my social capital and I get myself back up. But just
Nice.
like that, I don't feel like I really, really kind of moved on. Like sometimes I look at this picture, then I get memories of my boy crawling around, or like from hospital or stuff like that. Memories of calling him up, and then I'll cry.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to treat that, but that is how my life has been. I could just move away from terrible situations and then refine my energy. Because I lost my job with, I used to be head of operations at Junior at some point. So when they were switching, they got other investors. So when they were switching, they downsized us.
Oh no.
So they downsized us when my baby mama was just pregnant.
Okay.
And I didn't even tell her. So I had to deal with that in that time with all that. Like, mask it behind, because I'm in Uganda, my culture. And when you're in Uganda, you're trained to believe that you're supposed to be the breadwinner of the family. The mother of that boy is very intelligent, probably earns now 4 times than I do and stuff. But when you when you're made to believe that you're the breadwinner, and then you find in life you get a partner who is slightly far more better than you feel insecure when you're living with them. So it becomes you become very insecure about your relationship with them and how to live with them, because you've grown up seeing your dad be the man of the house in that actual sense. So you don't compromise on anything else if it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
So that brought the space and then the breakup and stuff. So in that time, because I realized like after a year later, because that is when, after that whole year I was fine. After like the breakup was fine and like people break up, people move on and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then it hit me like after a year that there's a big chunk of me that's missing. Because I remember there's every day I was crying for like a month straight, but every day at 6 p.m., even if I'm doing anything else, even if I'm distracted, tears will just come out of my eyes. So
Okay,
that is
that's
when I
very
believed
specific.
that I was depressed.
Yeah.
But then I didn't get any help. I just adopted I just picked myself up like, you know what?
How long did that take?
It took like 6 months with the crying and continuously.
Okay.
Of course, when you're on the street, there are other things involved. You have to use drugs to like get all the stuff. You have to smoke. You have to. So it got to that level where I was, first of all, I was dealing with my friends who were using class A substances. It was crazy because in a country like here, there's a lot of stigma on mental health. People don't really understand mental health. So you have to deal with the stigma, people calling you all sorts of things. The only way you can deal with such stuff is by trying to like disappear in moments. The fastest way you can do that is probably smoking. When you smoke marijuana, you tend to forget a little bit. You can choose what to forget in the moment. Like I can choose to forget some pain, like something has happened to me and it's bad, so I can choose to forget it. But my whole point is I didn't get out of this, so I don't want to go to hospital. Now I can afford it, but I don't want to go and get results. And yeah, you're depressed, so because I'll think about that and kill my energy, and I don't want that because I believe I'm happy.
You're now happy.
Yeah?
You're happy now.
Yeah. But that's my belief because I don't know how I moved on from my situation.
Yeah. I didn't know either. Maybe my sister can help here. She's like a pharmacist. She knows this stuff. Give me a second. I'll just have to. I don't know how you got through that. So
Exactly. That's the thing. Then how do you deal with depression? How did you deal with depression? How do you deal with depression?
I just mostly read stuff. Just read more and more what's happening to me, and then talk to people. Talk to her a lot. talk to I just talk to people. I found it talking to people very therapeutic. I found reading, I think reading was my best medicine though, because it opened up my world to think that, like, Googling, okay, what is the meaning of life and what is my purpose? Like, there's so many wonderful people out there who've like written more extensively about the topic. And obviously, my fundamental problem, or like core belief, was that there are already so many smart, capable people out there. Like, what are going to be my marginal contributions in big problems like climate change or space travel? I'm like very enthusiastic about setting up a Martian colony or like a lunar colony and being like, we're the first colonizers of the moon and Mars, and we're building. And I felt like that was out of reach, or it was just like I could, like, I don't know how to solve climate change, but also like go to the moon and Mars. It's like contradictory. Anyways, like I always got like this complex that I have nothing to contribute, and therefore I have no value. Like, what's my purpose? I shouldn't exist. But so Googling all of this, like, and like logically, like, I kind of answered a lot of my questions. Like, the fundamental belief was like, okay, the fact is that you do exist, right? Yeah. And start from there. The fact is that you exist, and then you can build from there. Like, you can't question your own existence. That's like, it's illogical to question your own existence because you're already there. That means lots of things must have gone right for things to go. And first of all, once I stopped believing God with a G, I was like, okay, there is no purpose for the world.
You don't
like,
believe in God?
No. I believe, not, I don't know. I don't know if there's a God. But once I stopped believing like there's like this grand design to things, and I'm more in tune, lined with, actually, I am God. Like, once I start this, everything starts from me. Like, I'm not trying to be self-centered here, but once I started realizing that actually there is no world independent of me and my perception, because if you talk to a blind person, he doesn't know what like colors are. It doesn't mean colors don't exist. Yeah. Or like, to him, like, all he knows is that you guys could be kidding and you could be talking about colors, but who knows? Again, how do you know what things to believe in? Data is like all, fugazi, and everything's false. So,
but the concept of God is such a fundamental issue that I feel like living in a state of I don't know is so unsafe. But I believe I'm also in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I believe it's so unsafe. Like, okay, what is happening to all these people that die? Do they just end there? What do you think about this?
I think once it's a return to non-being. Like, especially when you talk to your mom, she's like, we got married, and then and they'll be like, oh, you were not born then, but this and this happened. Like, sometimes I wasn't born. It's so hard to conceptualize me not existing. I'm like, what was there then? Where was I? And then people talk about past lives and reincarnation, but I'm like, technically, when I die, I will return to that state of pre-parents conceiving me. I don't know what that is, okay? But all I could say is that I'm just like a collection of food that they've eaten and I've eaten all my life. First, they ate food, then my mom ate food for like 9 months, and then suddenly I'm just like lots of, Indian food and spices, and that's what my body is, literally. And the more, you take yourself as just like a bag of molecules, the less, I don't know, it's just freeing in a way, not to think of yourself as just like a bag of molecules. Like, you're not like ego, or I am from this country, I'm that person, oh my god, I'm so cool because I've studied this much, I'm cooler than that person. Yeah, but you're just like a bag of molecules, right? No one really cares. And I think once I realized how stupid it was to like ascribe, people say, okay, believe in the soul and everything. I found it, pragmatically speaking, not helpful. It's not helpful to think of yourself more than your body. You are just your body, and it's freeing. It frees me.
Your mind is separate from your body?
No, it's not. Like, even scientifically speaking, Like there's lots of research on like a guy called Roger Sperry.
Yeah.
So he basically had schizophrenic patients have their corpus callosum, like it like connects the two regions of your brain, and it basically facilitates communication. So he did some research on that, right, and concluded that actually every part of our brain which hosts our mind is actually a separate self. It's a functioning unit in itself, and it all converges to give the impression that you're one unified person with one unified sense of, coherence in terms of who you are. But actually there's so many people within different parts of your brain, and that research was like baffling. The moment I came across it, I was like, God, as I told you, how did I cope with depression? Lots of reading. And that was so freeing to me. It's like, okay, so I am just like, a bunch of organic molecules coming together, and it's freeing. Like you stop worrying about, God, the more organic molecule's gonna kill me, so what, it's just illusion. And yeah.
So how do you, if you don't believe in God, how do you think you exist? Like the breathing, the life. Yeah.
I feel I'm eternal. Like I'm eternal, like the universe. Like my molecules will be there, but somehow they've configured in a way to form the person who I am with this skin tone and like this, I don't know, these toenails, right? But it'll all disperse again. So I'm just like a collection of stuff that's come together for now, and they'll go again. Like most cycles are about that, come together, go away, like flowers, like rose petals. My grandma died recently, and it's made me realize that actually, humans, we have like this weird tendency.
I'm very impressed by how you guys treat death as opposed to us. It's more of like a celebration to you. You're paying respects in that way. For us, it's noise, like, oh my God, people crying and wailing and cursing themselves, and it gets out of hand. But you guys are very organized. Your culture, very admired, by the way. From the time we started doing the live stream for you people, it hit me that, okay, this is such a good way to look at life. When someone passes on, you can just collect and rather than
crying.
Yeah.
But well, it also depends on the person. Like this person was old, she saw her life. But I'm pretty sure like if it was someone young, there'd be dismal appearances, because I've been in that. Like one of my aunt's child, and find there was a sense of like you're above the body and, all these metaphysical beliefs and rituals. I feel like the rituals are just to keep people sane, If you don't do anything, you're going to run mad. Like, especially if you just suffered a loss. So, these rituals, like, as like complaining, like, why do we have to do this? But it just keeps you engaged. Again, flow, you're meditating by keeping yourself engaged in the 10 period of mourning past like someone who's so been fundamental to your life. You're coping. That's all coping. If the family was all away in separate lives, I'm pretty sure everyone would be like depressed, and I was. As soon as I came back and my mom started telling me, okay, do that. I was like, God, okay, I have something to do now. I'm actually helpful. You just feel like you have something to do. It's kind of meditation, helps bring everyone together,
Interesting. No, in the interest of time, I'll
Yeah.
just ask this one last thing. What legacy are you trying to leave behind?
Nothing for now. But if I do leave anything behind, it'll probably be like more beauty. I love beauty.
In what regard?
Just aesthetics. I love form. I love coherence. I like visual coherence a lot. Like synesthetic coherence, smells, aromas, sights, sounds. I feel like discordancy, like really bad design irks me from the, like, God, I can't, this looks so bad. It shouldn't be like, I'm translating that on a more like individual level, like in terms of like, okay, keep things tidy and like beauty, aesthetics, form, especially something that I really admire is the iPhone. What a beautiful legacy that someone left behind, it's so pretty, and every time I look at it, it's so useful. I want to do something like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting, that's it.
Yes. Well, thank you.
This was fun for me. It was just supposed to be